Hello and welcome to the Friday edition of Catholic Answers Live, and this is a family show. This Friday show is for your family and about your family, and we're delighted you're here. And the second hour is all kids. Anybody under 18 is welcome to call with any question they've got about the Catholic faith. If you have a question about the Catholic faith and you are under 18, if you're allowed to dial the phone, go ahead and dial in that second hour. And if you're not allowed to dial the phone or you're not sure if you're allowed, ask the person who gives the permission whether you can and give us a call then. This hour, we talk about kids. Instead of talking to kids this hour, we talk about them and talk about your kids, my kids, how we help kids remain in the faith, remain in the Catholic faith, and grow and thrive in the Catholic faith in order to experience the fullness of this life and the joys of this life, and in order not to succumb to the pressures and the I suppose seductions would be the word, the seductions of modern faith. And if you have questions about helping kids, whether they are your adult kids or they're your kids, to remain in the faith, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. Our guest this hour is Marlon De La Torre, a renowned catechist himself, who travels the country helping dioceses and localities develop their catechesis strategies, and is author of many books. We'll get into all of that, but let me say hello now to Marlon. Marlon, you're there with us. Marlon De La Torre.
Hi, how are you? Good to hear you.
I am very, very well. So this is not something that we are doing great at, the helping our kids to make the faith their own and thrive in the faith, as a community, I mean.
Correct. It's for whatever reason, we tend to, I wouldn't say fail, but either forget or neglect the basic premise of what a child needs, or let alone a family. And so it's very important that we look towards that understanding of faith and what are our basic premises, or anthropology, if I dare say that, or Christian anthropology, of how to lay the groundwork on expressing the faith from the very beginning. It's something we stress with teachers all the time, wherever I travel over the country. The teachers ask me, whether in Catholic schools or in parishes, all right, well, when do I begin? And I tell them the moment they're born.
Yeah.
The moment they begin to sense their surroundings. And I tell them in particular, there's a certain age gap between the age of 2 and 9 where a child develops their worldview. And through that process, if the child sees something that is distinctively Catholic and they relate that to mom and dad or aunt, uncle, sibling, that will stick, or that will gravitate to them. They will understand why we do what we do. And so it's very important from the very beginning that we establish that process of formation, evangelization, catechesis, what have you, during that age range.
So now I have to say, there's going to be a lot of people who say, "Oh, I missed that. I missed that turn off."
That, exactly.
So now what?
Well, now you recover. Now, basically, if you got a 14-year-old kid, a child who is ambivalent or antagonistic towards the faith, you begin to show motives of credibility, or something to that effect, that begins to lay the groundwork on what they're called to do, not just as Catholics, but as simple Christians in the vineyard. And how does that look like? Well, if they don't know how to pray, introduce them to something of a conversation with God, taken from the Annals of St. Augustine. Or you begin to basically just communicate with them. It's what we call a simple pedagogy, or you're guiding them towards something, but you're not overt with them, or you tell them, all right, you're going to pray the rosary right now on your knees until they hurt. You begin to slowly bring an awareness that, you know what, God does care for you. And that's the number one thing I tell high school teachers. I taught high school for many years. And one of the things that you can scare a high school student with is by placing them in front of a full-length body mirror. They won't look at each other. They will not dare look at themselves, even though we tend to think there's a narcissism there. They're afraid to look at their own image. And that's where we attack that situation with the 14-year-old. Get him or her to see that, you know what, there's value in you. And that value was given to you by God. And that value can never be taken away, regardless of what anybody says to you. And that's where you begin to prick away those layers. You remove the scales, and you begin to see or develop an identity. Because most kids, unfortunately, were not given that opportunity. So you begin with that identity with God, that identity with Christ, and hopefully through prayer, fasting, discipline, you begin to just pick away at those scales that have been placed upon him or her for whatever reason. And eventually, they'll see something of the light of Christ.
888-318-7884 is our number here. If you have questions about helping your children to receive the faith, stay in the faith, and grow in the faith, Marlon De La Torre is our guest this hour. He's adjunct professor of catechetics at Holy Trinity Seminary for the Diocese of Fort Worth and the executive coordinator for pastoral provision in conjunction with the Holy See and the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. You probably, if you know him, you might know him from his book, Screwtape Teaches the Faith, which parallels C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters with the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Again, 888-318-7884 is the number, 888-318-7884. I'm going to give you a tough one here, Marlon,
Sure.
and I don't want you to think this is personal. I don't want you to think this is coming from me, but let's say there was a father who on Father's Day, Sunday, this week, would be seeing his adult children again, his young adult children, and not all of them have accepted the faith as adults, and they are estranged from it. So I don't want you to think at all that's my story. I'm just kidding. So how do we do that? How do we parents who might have children who are they're maybe maintaining a strategic ambiguity with us about their faith life, or seem to have, at least for the time being, rejected the faith?
I think you embrace them regardless of the situation. So if there's an antagonism or ambiguity, or basically a distance between father and son or daughter, you still accept them where they're at with respect to they're still children of God. And even in the conversation, I've had this question many times from both moms and dads. It's like, what do I do?
Yeah.
I kind of blew it. And now they think I'm a hypocrite because I'm coming back into the church, or that I'm being forceful or imposing my will on them. And what I tell parents is, look, one of the greatest gifts we can do and we can witness to our children is to apologize. Not apologize as a sense of weakness, but apologize that there were certain things that we should have done that we didn't do or that we weren't aware of, and that justice and mercy is part of the gift of God's kingdom. And that's one thing that really strikes a chord with a lot of parents that they don't think about. It's like, well, I didn't know what I was doing, so I take it at that. Well, at the same time, if there was something that was done and you were aware of it, it's good for your children to see you not in a weakened state, but in a state of mercy, in a state of forgiveness. If there was something that is still inundating the family through past faults, past actions, what was said or not said, or just not raising them in the faith at all, and now you have this reversion to the faith, and they don't care to follow in your footsteps, apologize to them, not by making them feel anything less than what they are, but just explain to them where you're at. I think part of that dialogue, if I dare say, has to be truth. And the truth is, I was not there for you, if that's the case, or I didn't do enough for you at this time. And not that I want to make up for it, I just want you to see it for the sake of truth, for the sake of what the church offers. And whether you like me or not, that's all right. But I just want you to see that Christ does indeed exist. He does love you and has a plan for you. And that's something that I think for a lot of parents, they take some solace in because it's the first step of seeking mercy and forgiveness and hopefully opening the door.
Marlon De La Torre is our guest. We're talking about passing the faith to your kids. If that rings a bell with you as something you'd like some help with or like some discussion of, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. We'll take a quick break, and we will be right back with more of your calls. Well, not more of your calls, well, for all of your calls for Marlon De La Torre on passing the faith to your kids right after this.
Catholic Answers Live. The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
I'm really a revert. There are a lot of converts on Catholic radio, a lot of reverts, those who have come back to the faith. And ever since I came back to a practice of my faith, I started praying the rosary, going to even daily Mass. God has led me on an amazing journey and used me in a lot of incredible ways that I never dreamed would have been possible.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, tonight, midnight Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. If you've got questions about passing the faith on to your kids, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884. That's our discussion this hour, passing the faith on to your children. 888-318-7884. Right now, I am joined in studio with a man who, frankly, I can't wait to go to Rome with. Chris Check, President of Catholic Answers.
Si, you and I and Father Hugh Barber are going to Rome in November 4?
Yeah, November 4th through 13th.
Glory to God. And we're only taking 50 people.
Yes, and that means
50.
50, and there's not very many of those.
No,
spots
there are about 10 slots left.
Yeah. So whether you're a couple or a single, you are welcome to call. There are plenty of folks. We had a question actually from them to say, "Well, am I going to be? It's going to be awkward if I come as a single person." But we've got a bunch of single people going.
Sure, we do.
And we got a bunch of couples going.
Yes.
And whatever your
we
level
don't discriminate.
We do. Well. We might discriminate. I don't want any more of your relatives coming, but other than that, no. The other thing is, another question we got recently was about, well, do I have to be one of those people who really knows the faith really well? Am I going to be uncomfortable? Are you all like a bunch of super Catholics who are going to intimidate me? And
the answer is no. The answer is you're going to be in Rome, the center of the world, the eternal city, the most beautiful city in the world. And you're going to have a magnificent time. And we are going to stay at the Colonna Palace Hotel, which is right in the middle of the historic center. We're going to do a lot of walking. So if you want to see Rome through the dirty windshield of a bus, this is not your tour. Right? Now, there will be a couple days, Si, where we will
take a bus outside
We'll
the
need a
walls.
bus. There's a couple of places we're going to see a little off the beaten path. One of them is St. Agnes outside the walls, which has its own catacombs. It has the foundation of one of the early Constantinian basilicas.
Wonderful.
There's the mausoleum of Constanza there, his daughter. And it's also where every year in February they take the lambs that are sheared. The nuns bring these lambs in and they're sheared. And then that wool becomes the pallium for when a new cardinal is made. So,
oh, man.
And the bones of St. Agnes are there, of course.
And if you don't know St. Agnes, well, let me just tell you, Thomas Aquinas did. He carried relics of her around. Did you know that?
Yes,
Yeah,
I did
Father
know
Hugh
that.
Barber told me that.
Yeah.
2 relics of
Well,
St.
speaking
Agnes
of
around.
which, Father Hugh, who has lived in Rome, I've been to the Eternal City a dozen times. Father Hugh has lived there extensively. You can't ask for a better guide than Father Hugh. And it's going to be convivial. You're going to see all the big sites. We'll see the Scavi, the excavations under St. Peter's. So we'll see the bones of St. Peter. We'll see the big sites, and we'll see some things off the beaten path that you would only see if you went with a guy like Father Hugh, who really knows the inside of the Eternal City.
We're going to just settle in one hotel. We're going to fly over, and we're going to settle for the entire time in one hotel, the Colonna Palace Hotel, right down next to the Pantheon. You can look it up on your Google machine. It's right down in the middle of everything, and we are going to see Rome, but even more important, we are going to live Rome. We'd really like it if you'd come November 3rd through the 14th. You just go to CatholicAnswersPilgrimage.com.
CatholicAnswersPilgrimage.com. Only about 10 slots left, folks, so don't delay.
No, don't delay. It's we'll fill up pretty quickly. And as we've said all along, when we get to 50, it's done, because otherwise we can't all stay together in the Colonna Palace Hotel. So,
and it becomes too much to walk around.
Yeah, and we're going to have fun. And
will there be red wine?
It's so funny. I was just going to ask you about wine.
And some good food, probably.
Yes, right.
An abundance of both.
Right. And if you're... Yes, we want you to come. Just come. CatholicAnswersPilgrimage.com.
CatholicAnswersPilgrimage.com.
If you want to just shoot us an email, you can always, anytime, you can shoot us an email about anything. But if you got a question about the pilgrimage, send it over to radio@Catholic.com, radio@Catholic.com. If you want to find out more on your own, just go exploring at CatholicAnswersPilgrimage.com and come with us.
Amen.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Cy, and I want to say thank you for getting a Texan on the show.
I know, right? He's in your parents' diocese.
Right,
I just
Fort
heard.
Worth.
That's right.
God
Fort
bless.
Worth, that's right. Marlon De La Torre is our guest, and Marlon is he's well known all around the country, and indeed, you've probably been to Rome a few times.
Had the pleasure 3 times.
Yeah.
So love that city. Never fails to. Every time we've had the pleasure of going, can't get enough. So it's the beautiful city of our Lord, and it's just a great joy to be there.
I have a suggestion for you then. Go over to CatholicAnswersPilgrimage.com and say, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just
Absolutely.
trying. But today we're talking about what is exactly your business and what you have devoted your life to, and that is the passing on of the faith and the strengthening of the faith in your fellow Christians. That's why people bring you all around the country to do the work that you do. That's why people buy your books, particularly the one that connects to today probably is Screwtape Teaches the Faith. A book that looks at, everyone knows C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters, but you connect it with the Catechism of the Catholic Church. And, so it sounds like the various different scenarios I presented you of a parent with child and wanting to pass on the faith to them, it sounds like it's not very, well, no, I shouldn't put it that way. It sounds very relational to me. It sounds like relationship is at the key of all the answers you gave me in the first segment.
It is. There's a basis for any parent that calls me and says, all right, how do I communicate with my kid? And I tell them, the first thing is, have you been praying for your child since day one? And they said, well, of course. I said, well, how are you praying with them? Or what are you doing to guide them towards this relationship with Christ that you're trying to establish? And that's where they get stumped. Because they, for whatever reason, they didn't take that approach or didn't think of it. They just assumed, well, we do the basics. We go to Mass. Maybe we pray a little bit here or there. We say a rosary from time to time. We pray for somebody in need. But there's never a consistency with a lot of parents. And so I tell them, start interceding on behalf of your son or your daughter. Begin that approach in terms of forming their faith, knowing that mom and dad are praying for you. So there's no less of a gift than knowing that a child knows that his mom or dad has their back. So the greatest thing that they can have from their parents is like, mom, dad have my back. And in terms of that process of prayer and formation, it really becomes key in establishing that core relationship with a child, with your son, with your daughter, with your siblings, whatever the case may be. And that's crucial for us. Case in point, I've got 4 kids of my own. It ranges from 20 years to 5. And all 4 of them are different. They're all distinct. My oldest is my son, and then 3 girls. And each one has a different charism based on what we've done, not just in praying for them, but in guiding them to see, all right, what does God have in store for you? What is part of your process? Because for us, God gave us these children for a reason, and we're here to take care of them on his behalf. And that's the key component in dealing with forming any type of faith with a child, is that we were given a gift by God to be instruments to form these children in his name. And if we take that approach, I'm not saying all people don't, but if we establish that from the very beginning they're born, then we become not just parents per se, or caregivers, but we are spiritual caretakers. And that's really the formation, the foundation of what we're called to do. When you relate it to Scripture from any perspective, whether it's the Great Commission in Matthew 28, or when God is explaining to Moses at the burning bush in Exodus 2, all right, this is what I want you to do, and then he tells him to write these things down in Exodus 17, there's a premise on how to convey the faith. And for a parent, you're not just a catechist. You're not just a pedagogue in terms of guiding somebody towards God. You're really the instrument that they see on a daily basis. That we are the primary example of how someone's going to grow in their Catholic faith. And if we allow that to grow and not fester aimlessly, but allow it to grow intentionally, then we've got something between mom and dad and their children. And that really sets the stage for any child, God willing, to grow or at least to be open.
888-318-7825 888-318-7884 is our number. We're talking about passing the faith on to our children. If you have questions in that regard, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884. We'll start off the calls today with Sean in Michigan. Sean, you there with us?
Yes. Hi. How
Hi.
are you? Thank you, gentlemen, for all you're doing.
Well, thank you,
I'm
Sean.
in a
Thank you,
precarious
Sean.
position. I have a godson, so not the parent, but the godfather, and I'm trying to pass on the faith. He's gotten heavily involved in things like Dungeons and Dragons and things that are, have an occult foundation to them. And I'm wondering how you would best tackle that, not being a parent, just telling him he can't do those things. And I'll put myself on mute and listen. Thank you.
No, great question. Great question. I think when you have something that's questionable, like Dungeons and Dragons and things of that nature, think of alternatives for them. Obviously, they like fantasy. All right, that's great. And they like battles as well. And there's some sleuth involved with Dungeons and Dragons. And as you progress through those stages, not to give the game away, you're always tempted with another gift, or they're tempting you with to go deeper into those caverns that Dungeons and Dragons offers. So the contrary to that, or the parallel to that, would be, all right, why don't you introduce them to a sleuth game or something that will attract their attention? Basically, either reading anything from Sherlock Holmes in terms of literary background, or you read something related to Lord of the Rings, Silmarillion from J.R.R. Tolkien, or introduce them to the Lord of the Rings itself, so they can understand that there's an alternative to the Dungeons and Dragons game itself, that there's another fantasy world that really espouses a Christ-centered worldview. And it's something to present to them. There's even a Lord of the Rings board game, if I dare say, and a video game that really can counteract anything from Dungeons and Dragons. I've had this question before many years ago, and parents trying to find an alternative to these things. And typically, I ask parents how they find Dungeons and Dragons to begin with. Say, the internet. And either grandma or grandpa bought it, or were aware of it, and somebody introduced them to it, and it stuck. So I try to find alternatives for parents, and sometimes they're not aware of the Christian imagery with Lord of the Rings, so they're not familiar with those stories, or with the Chronicles of Narnia, for example. So that's what I would do to offer an alternative to him, and just walk with him. All right, since you're the godfather and you're part of the spiritual nourishment they're supposed to receive, introduce those to them subtly. Say, hey, you know what? I got an idea. You ever heard of Lord of the Rings? You ever heard of the Silmarillion or the Hobbit, and this battle between good and evil? And see where it goes from there, slowly but surely, because a child that's knee-deep in Dungeons and Dragons will be very difficult, at least up front, to distract them or unwind them from the game. So you want to introduce it subtly over a period of time, and then to see where it goes from there. The other thing is this: pray for him, as I know you do, and really don't stop interceding for him so they can find an alternative.
And our caller there, Sean, said he was just going to listen on hold, so we'll say thank you very much for the call, Sean. Appreciate it. 888-318-7884 is the number if you're a parent or a grandparent, or as Sean was, a good godparent, looking for ways to help young ones find the faith, keep the faith, persevere in the faith, make the faith their own. This is the hour for you. 888-318-7884, whether your kid is 1 or 73. From 1 to 73, you can call about your kid. 888-318-7884. Up next is Laura in Oklahoma, listening on 97.3 FM. Laura, your question for Marlon De La Torre.
Yes, so I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old son, and my 9-year-old is very curious, and he wants me to explain to him more about the Trinity. So how would you best explain the Trinity to a 7 and a 9-year-old?
Okay. Typically, with 7 and 9-year-olds, you're dealing with what I call organic elements. They want motives of credibility. What that means is this: they want something physical that they can see and touch, or reality that exists. There's 2 ways to go about that, Laura. One is take the basic element of water, for example, when explaining the Trinity. A water has distinct properties. It's a liquid, okay? It's a gas when put under extreme temperatures, and it's a solid when put under extreme temperatures. But the same substance still occurs, meaning it's still, those are all derived from water. And so it's one simple way or basic way to explain the Trinity to a 7-year-old or a 9-year-old, that our Lord is divine. He reveals himself through 3 distinct modes. Himself, because he is the creator. He is I am, as we see in Exodus, for example. He reveals himself through his Son, the Son of God, second person of the Blessed Trinity, and through his breath or spirit or ruah, that we call the Holy Spirit, the messenger of God. And we can see that in Luke 1:26, or the messenger Gabriel revealing and communicating with our Blessed Mother Mary. But in terms of elements, I would use water for them to see that you have 3 distinct properties, but one nature. The nature is water. And that would be one of the foundations of explaining the Trinity itself.
Do you want to?
The other would be this.
Marlon, we got to take a break because the music's playing.
Problem.
But how about we finish this up on the other side? Can you hang on, Laura?
Yes, I can.
All right, Laura, hang on. We'll be right back with more with Marlon De La Torre on helping your kids to stay in the faith. If you have questions in that regard, 888-318-7884.
In his new audio presentation, The Very First Fathers, apologist Jimmy Akin takes you on a tour of the earliest Christian writings outside the New Testament. From the most famous figures and most notable works to those lesser known but no less important, this pivotal time in the development of the early church is revealed in fascinating detail. Jimmy shows how, even in the first century after the resurrection, it was necessary to defend and explain truths that are still under attack today, such as the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist and the perpetual virginity of Mary. The Very First Fathers is a compelling look at the dawn of the Christian age and edifying listening for anyone who wants to understand and defend the full truth of Catholicism. Order your copy of The Very First Fathers today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Love and beauty. As a little girl, Dawn Eden Goldstein knew that she wanted those things, that in them somehow she would find God. Over the years as a rock journalist, she moved among some of popular music's best-known artists, straining to capture that transcendent love and beauty in every note and lyric. In Sunday Will Never Be the Same, Dawn recounts her spiritual journey in beautifully wrought detail, mixing powerful accounts of trauma, healing, and epiphany with funny anecdotes from inside the music scene. It is the rare conversion story that delights as it inspires, amuses as it edifies, and ultimately lays before the reader a lived testimony to the transforming grace of Christ. Order your copy of Sunday Will Never Be the Same by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Looking for an on-fire Catholic speaker for your event? Catholic Answers speakers will inform and inspire your audience to grow in their Catholic faith. For more information on booking a Catholic Answers speaker, visit CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com today.
Coming up Monday on More to Life, Fool Me Twice.
Are there people in your life who are consistently letting you down? Tune in to More to Life, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 Central on EWTN Radio.
Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Laura in Oklahoma, listening on 97.3 FM, is one of the best mothers I know, apparently, because she's got her 9-year-old and 7-year-old asking questions about the Trinity. That's pretty good parenting, yeah. Laura. You're off to a good start. But how to explain it? Our guest, Marlon De La Torre, was in the midst of his answer when we had to go to the break. So, Marlon?
Sure, Laura. No, I commend you for having that dialogue with your kids. That's fantastic. But I think that water explanation or analogy that I was expressing to you, where they see a gas, they see a solid, and they see a liquid, that's essentially a good way of getting them started in how God reveals himself and how to explain the Trinity, because they see the elements, and God is the author of all these elements. And that's important that for a young child, he or she sees that connection between nature, the element of nature, and how God has orchestrated all this to work. And so that's a very good way of laying a foundation of explaining the Trinity. And then you discuss those elements in light of God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then if you tie scriptures into that, obviously you can use the whole discourse of Christ being baptized in John 3:5, or discuss the whole element of the Eucharistic discourse in John 6. I think you begin with verse 37. And then Matthew 28, obviously, the Great Commission, 17, Matthew 28, 17 to 20. And you can tie in those scriptures to give them an understanding of how God communicates through his Son, through the Holy Spirit, still maintains, obviously, that he is divine. And then you can tie that in with the water example. That way they see how everything is communicating, because water nourishes, water replenishes, and water is good for us just by nature itself. So that's what I would do, as laying a foundation to explain the Trinity to your 7-year-old and your 9-year-old. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And they both love science. So I think being able to incorporate that into the lesson is going to be really helpful in helping them visually see.
Yeah, if I may say,
what it is.
Laura, thanks. If I may say, Marlon, it struck me that you made very clear at the beginning. Okay, this is the age 7 and 9. It has to be physical. They have to be able to see it, hear it, taste it, touch it, smell it. But I wonder how much, when you give an explanation like that to a child, you just let it stay there, or do you say, more questions are going to come up about this as you get older, and we can get deeper into it, because clearly, I mean, it's an inexhaustible mystery, and that's, I guess, my point is, how do you teach them that here's an image that you can have in your mind that will help you to see this, but it's always going to be something that's very, very hard to even begin to understand.
Correct. And the one thing about the term mystery is that when we tell them, and I get this a lot, mystery sometimes is mischaracterized as impossible to understand or learn. And what I share with parents and even with students, I say the mystery is that it's been revealed. It's up to us to try to unpack it a little bit more. And that to me is where I get giddy, if I dare say, where we have this opportunity to unravel more of what he's already revealed to us. So, for example, if you look at the biology of a child going through puberty, okay, you have different phases of the child going through prepubescent and then post-pubescent phases of the child. But they're still a human being, meaning that there are elements that the child's going through that he's developing both physically, emotionally, psychologically, so to speak. But he's still a child of God. He's still male. She is still female. And I've used that example of explaining the Trinity to teenagers, especially between 6th grade and 9th grade, because they see, well, yeah, I'm still me. Yes, but you've changed. Your voice has changed. Your physical appearance has changed. Your view of male and female has changed, but you're still you. God made you you. And he's trying to invoke in you those different biological aspects of how you're maturing, so you can see yourself better, see yourself as a son of God, as a soldier for Christ, for example, if we're talking about the young men in particular. And so you can begin to invoke that process of development. And that's part of the development of the Trinity, meaning that the development of doctrine, or that unveiling or unpacking, is to help them see that mystery is something that God intends for you to understand as you open yourself to more of his language, to more of his communication, to more of his thought process through prayer, scripture, the catechism, lives of the saints. And so in tackling mystery, that you attack it through the senses organically. There's a particular, I think, article in the catechism, if I remember correctly, I think it's 170, where it stresses, give them this motive of credibility. What the saints have done, what the Mass does, how God has revealed himself incrementally through Christ, through the Holy Spirit, and how he wants man to be united with him in whole. And so that's another way of really attacking or addressing that phenomenon of mystery when it comes to teaching the faith.
888-318-7884 is our number. The topic: helping your children to hold on to the faith. If you've got a child, maybe you've got one that you're worried about. If you'd like some advice in that department, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884. Maybe you've got one that's you're not worried about, that they're progressing in a way that impresses you, but you'd like some help knowing what's next. How do I continue the growth of my child in the faith? 888-318-7884. Marlon De La Torre is our guest, and as I said, among his books is Screwtape Teaches the Faith, which parallels C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters with the Catechism of the Catholic Church. That's available from TAN, St. Benedict Press. You got some places you're going, Marlon, so I'm going to let people know where you're going to be. He'll be part of the St. John Bosco Conference at Franciscan University at Steubenville, Ohio. He'll be presenting in both English and Spanish between July 18th and the 21st. He'll be in Corpus Christi Diocese, helping teachers become better teachers of the faith and working with deacons and DREs later in August in Phoenix, Arizona. So you can find them in one of those places. Our number again, 888-31-TRUTH. 888-318-7884. You know, you mentioned the internet before.
Mm-hmm.
I think for many parents, they see the internet as an enemy in a way, and it has those qualities, but one that they have to be very careful about making more attractive to their children by, just banning it and making it off limits. How do you handle a child's faith life in the age of the internet?
Basically, I tell parents all the time, take the opportunity to look at your children and tell them first that you love them and I love you very much, to the point where let's take away the iPad, let's take away your cell phone, let's take away whatever device you've got, and let's take a walk, pray, talk to me, see what's going on, and we'll go from there. It's as simple as that. And some parents try those aspects, and they work. And it's because the child has never been given the opportunity in this day and age to actually have a genuine conversation with your mom and dad. The conversation is through Twitter. It's through some who still use Facebook at a young age, or Pinterest, or Instagram, or let alone text. So that lost art of conversation has been deposed by social media. And so I tell parents, look, engage your son or daughter, ask them a direct question. What have you done today to grow in your Catholic faith? If they're teens, or if they're between the ages of 8 and 13, you ask them, all right, has there been something in your mind that's caused you to think about God? And so there are different questions based on the age. Why do we ask those general questions? Because that's the way they're thinking. The internet, any social media platform, allows you not to think. They inundate you with information. So how do you counteract that? Well, from a basic standpoint, as a teacher, as a pedagogue, as a catechist, ask them a general question that'll make them think. Kind of blow their mind away, so to speak, but you want to engage that facet of this child. If you're dealing with an 18-year-old, an 18 to 22-year-old, basically ask them, when's the last time you thought about committing a sin? And I go, well, why would you ask me that? Because I know you did, because I know you will. And a college student asked me that one day. We were doing a presentation, Theology on Tap, and so I asked the question to this group of 80 college students, all right, everybody raise their hand the last time somebody thought about sinning today. They were all stunned asking the question. It's like, all right, let me rephrase the question. How many of you thought about either saying something, committing something, or had an impure thought of any kind within the last 24 hours? They all raised their hands. It's like, well, that's my point. And so I threw that question because then I followed up by asking them, all right, when's the last time any of you have been to confession? Basically, out of the 80, only one. And so you want to engage them with those types of questions, because the moment I asked the question on sinning, because some of them had their phones on or were recording using their iPads, everything dropped. They put all their phones down because we asked them a direct question. They all put it down, and now I had their attention because it was something so far-fetched that they never asked. But now they were inquiring, all right, what do you mean by that? And that's how I hooked them in. So there are ways you have to be creative in asking the questions and not be afraid to throw those zingers at them, because they're not zombies. They're human beings. They're God's children. So whether you're dealing with that demographic of 18 to 22 or that teenage demographic, there is a purposeful question that you can throw at them that'll literally get them to think and put social media to the side. All human beings want to talk, so let's engage them.
888-318-7884, the number 888-31-TRUTH if you prefer it that way. Passing the faith to your kids is our topic. Marlon De La Torre is our guest, and we have to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more calls for Marlon right after this.
Your questions, Catholic Answers, live.
You've heard that St. Paul Street Evangelization supports hundreds of teams of evangelists sharing the good news. But did you know that some of these teams are public prayer stations? Set up a sign on the sidewalk and offer prayer and encouragement to those you encounter. Everyone needs prayer. Try this new method of witnessing to Jesus. Contact St. Paul Street Evangelization to get started at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
I said to the sisters one day, what do you think you're going to look like in heaven? Oh, some of them had absolutely magnificent ideas. I didn't think of one of them. And so I got desperate because then my turn came. I didn't know what to say. And so in desperation, I said, what do you think I'll wear in heaven? And they all said with one voice, armor.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. It's an all-family show today for this Friday. All kids questions. Next hour, it's a kids open forum. If you are under 18, you are welcome to call with your question about God, about the church, about the Bible. Jimmy Akin will be here to take those calls and answer whatever questions come up. And we might have some little prizes we'll be giving out. We'll see. So if you're a member of the younger set or you got a member of the younger set, next hour, perfect for you. This hour, we're talking about helping kids to receive the faith, passing that faith on to your kids. 888-318-7884 is our number. 888-318-7884. Our guest is Marlon De La Torre. His book, Screwtape, Teaches the Faith, a book which, as you could probably guess, takes C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters, but then pairs it up with the Catechism of the Catholic Church. You can find that from St. Benedict Press. Lots of people on the line, so I got to go now to Tony in Portland. What? Is that right? Am I on the right line? Tony in Portland, can I go to that line? I think I can. Tony, are you there?
Very independent.
Oh, hi, Tony. Are you Tony? Hang on.
I'm Joni.
Okay, Joni. This is Cy. You're on the air. Are you in Portland?
Oh, I'm in Portland, Oregon. Yeah.
Okay, so your question for Marlon.
Yeah. Okay. So, Marlon, I didn't hear that question that you said was a good question to ask your kids. I got distracted for a second, but I constantly think about my kids. I pray for them all the time. Especially I want to talk about my daughter who is 22. She got married in January. Okay. And before that, she just started really pulling away from me. And we're both Christians. I'm a faithful Christian. She's a faithful Christian. And I know a couple of times when I said things, her response seemed to be something like, now that she's married, she doesn't owe, I shouldn't be concerned about her, or that our relationship should be different. And granted, it should be different, but now our relationship is so superficial and so much based on, I'll send her a word of encouragement, or I'll say, hello, how are you doing, honey? And it's like, good, Mom, with an exclamation mark and a smiley face. And it chills me. It's so shallow.
All right,
and
so
she doesn't include me in things. There's only around, so I'm still at a loss because I don't want to be.
Sure.
I don't want to pester her.
Joni, how old is your daughter again?
22.
All right.
22.
Marlon, what do you say to that?
All right, Joni. Based on what you're telling me, obviously, not knowing the whole complete family dynamic, in my experience in working with families with post-teens and young adults, the young adult basically wants to have a sense that they're equal with mom and dad. They want to go on their own and figure out what they're going to do with their faith, how they're going to live their life with their future husband or future wife. And they're really looking at mom and dad not to be that parental figure pre-marriage or pre-college, looking for somebody that would serve more as a counselor and a guide when necessary. So, for example, when my son went to school, he's 20 now, he's a seminarian for this diocese. So my wife was somewhat not distraught, but the fact that she wasn't getting initial communications with him per se. And my son's point was, all right, I'm fine. It's okay. There were some superficial communications, but I assured her, I told my wife, look, he wants to establish his identity, and he wants to establish his identity with the church, and that's fine. We need to be there and be that silent witness and that guide that when he will call, we will answer, and that we don't need to be on him anymore. We trust, even though it's very difficult as a parent, to let go of a child, especially our first or second per se. After the third and fourth, they can go home. They can leave for all we care, and I kid that. But with that said, what she may be looking for is, all right, Mom, let me give this a go on my own. And if I need something, I will call you. But it doesn't mean you don't stop praying for her. You're always going to be that silent intercessor on her behalf. And you don't need to send a note, per se, every day or even every week. You could send her something like, you know what, I hope you and your husband are having a blessed day, and know that we're praying for you. Something completely different, where you incorporate now and affirm the marriage that she's in versus just affirming herself. Does that make sense, Joni?
Yeah, and I do all that, and there's not a dad and a mom, and so we're divorced, so that there are some dynamics, around that.
Okay.
But I guess I feel like this has gone to another level of what you're talking about. I feel like there's something going on that I don't understand. So, for example, her in-laws are in town, and for a few days, and it just seems like she would include me in something. I just feel like there's something going on that I just am so unaware of, can't figure out. So I don't know.
Gotcha.
I hear what you're saying, and but I'm trying to figure out if this is the natural developmental status that you're referring to, or if it is something more. How do I continue still the same role, like Jesus explained, that I would still be that silent supporter that she knows loves her no matter what, and just let God do his work?
Well, it's as an outsider, just listening to the two of you talk, Joni, it sounds kind of normal what she's doing. I don't know, Marlon, did you want to follow up with that?
It is. I would recommend, Joni, you're not all different from a lot of families, especially those that come from a divorce situation. I would say this. I would pray to St. Rita. Kasia, I would turn to St. Rita in dealing with what you're expressing right now. She would be a great intercessory saint for you in this situation. So I would read up everything you can find on St. Rita in dealing with difficult family issues and struggles of that nature. For one, I would definitely turn to that beloved saint because it would be ideal for you in this situation. And a particular scripture that comes to mind regarding parent to child would be Sirach chapter 2. I would turn to Sirach chapter 2, I think from verse 1 through 10 or 11. That's a discourse on trusting in God on behalf of your child.
All right, Joni, we will leave it there. We're talking about helping your children remain in the faith today with Marlon De La Torre. Next up, Joni, thank you. Next up is Jeff in Kalamazoo, Michigan, listening on Holy Family Radio. Jeff, your question for Marlon De La Torre.
Hi, yes. I'm calling regarding my daughter. Today is her 19th birthday. Her mother and I are divorced 3 years just this June. And she came to me. Actually, she didn't come to me. She sent me a text about 2 years ago after she had turned 18. She knows that, I attend Mass, and she's confirmed. Her mother and I were pretty good about that. In fact, her mother was a DRE at our church. So she was raised in the faith. And when she came to me in the text, she said, I know you're going to be upset, and there's something I have to tell you. And she proceeded to tell me in text that she was gay. I was upset, and another part of that is that her mom's sister is also gay, homosexual, and lives with a partner. And so there's that other influence. I try to be involved in her life as much as possible. She moved out for college but has now moved back in. The kids have always sided with their mom strongly. She has encouraged that to a significant degree, but in any case, I guess I'm wondering, like, I know that my kids had asked me before, because they know my faith and what my beliefs are, that if one of my children was gay, would I go to their wedding? Now, we're not to that situation yet, and I pray for Delaney, and I pray that this is a phase, but as she gets older and older and she brings her friends to family functions and those types of things, I guess I'm not sure
how to respond.
I don't know what to do.
Gotcha.
All right. Fair enough. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I know several families in that same situation, Jeff, and it's not an easy one. What I can share with you based on just experience, one, and also obviously church teaching in keeping with our faith. Obviously, you love her, and that's a given. She wants to know to a degree how much will you love her in light of this new information. And obviously, in that respect, you're her father. She told you for a reason to see, engage where you're going to be at with that. So obviously that's established. From that point forward, you begin to have a dialogue with her as much as possible in lieu of all the surroundings that she has or experiences with other people of that same nature, so to speak, of that same situation, that you're still going to be there for her. You are allowed to call into question her actions that go against the church's teaching. That's perfectly fine. You can still love her regardless of that. You are allowed to call her out with respect to anything that may be misconstruing the faith or causing a bad example or bad influence on either younger siblings or younger cousins or whatever the case may be. That is your right as a father. It's your right as a Catholic. And you explain that to her. It's important that that dialogue happen immediately. I'm working with a family where we have a very similar situation the way you describe it, and the father of this family, he has several young kids, and really he put his foot down when it came to the external family members. One who happens to be lesbian, and he said, "Look, we respect you, we love you. However, you can't express these acts or these thoughts publicly in front of my kids. We will accept you in the household, but you must be respectful of my children and respectful of us and of why we hold the Catholic faith and the teachings of the church this way." And she respected that. They understood that. So it's important that you begin that process of explaining yourself, why you believe what you believe, okay? And then two, obviously embrace her, accept her. And then from that point forward, have that perpetual dialogue as much as possible, and love her. For example, do you have to be at a wedding in the future with her? I'll leave that up to you. One answer would be no, because you're not going to affirm, quote unquote, that union per se. And somebody would disagree with me and say, well, you should be there because they're looking for acceptance. And that's a catch-22. I've seen it done both ways in that situation, if that should come to pass down the road. But prior to that, it's important that you clarify, for her sake, why we believe what we believe. Even though she's confirmed, even though she went through formation, she needs to always hear it in a loving way. And while you will still love her, but not necessarily accept all her actions that she may publicly profess, that would be contrary to the teachings of the church. Nothing wrong with that. You're not loving her less, though she may see that. But that would be really your role as a father, regardless of what may happen.
Okay, Jeff?
So, I think we got cut off.
I don't know. Jeff, is that answer acceptable to
Yes, she will definitely. She'll think that. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's okay. Yeah, Jeff. And then one thing I would tell you is this. St. Paul's letter to the Ephesians offers some solace in your situation. I would recommend, if anything, in terms of meditating on Scripture, to read Ephesians chapter 2. It talks about the unity of Christ and the unity of the family. I would definitely read that as part of your journey with her.
Okay, Jeff?
Okay, will do. Yeah. Are there? I mean, this is a lot, and I'm still absorbing it. She hasn't told anybody else in my family. She knows they'd all be against it, and I don't know what it would do. But
well, don't lose heart. By all means, Jeff, don't lose heart. You love your daughter. God loves your daughter. And sometimes it takes a long time of patience for things to work out, but don't lose heart. Make sure you have confidence in the love of God and in your love for your daughter. Our guest this hour has been Marlon De La Torre. You can find out all about him at knowingisdoing.org. Knowingisdoing.org. You might want to get his book, Screwtape Teaches the Faith, a book that puts together the Screwtape letters and the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Marlon De La Torre, thank you very, very much for a fine hour.
It's been a pleasure. Great job. Thank you. Appreciate everything at Catholic Answers.
All right, up next, Kids Show. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, Super Friday edition, and it is an all kids hour this hour. If you have a kid and they got a question about the Catholic faith, about the Bible, about God, about angels, they're welcome to call. If you are a kid that would like to call and ask a question, you're also welcome to call. You just got to get permission from who's ever in charge of the phone. Our number here is 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. And Maria, am I allowed to tell them about this? Am I allowed to say this on the air, that we have Catholic puzzle books, word games, and brain teasers? It's volume 1 from Matt Swain. And you all know Matt Swain from EWTN, various places on EWTN. This is a delightful and fun Catholic book, all kinds of puzzles, perfect for the summer. So everybody who gets through today on the line gets that. If you're a teenager, however, we're going to send you Why Be Catholic, Trent Horn's wonderful book, Why Be Catholic. Why We're Catholic. Sorry, yeah, Why We're Catholic. Sorry, I don't know why I was looking to Marie to help me, but obviously I needed the help. 888-318-7884 is the number. Our guest this hour is Jimmy Akin, now resting and recovering after having completed a manuscript.
Yeah.
How are you, Jimmy Akin?
Doing okay. How are you, Cy Kellett?
I am very, very well. Thank you. I am very happy that it's Friday for some reason.
Me too.
I like Fridays.
Yeah.
So kids can call you with, they can pretty much ask you anything.
Yeah,
right?
Pretty much.
You're welcome to ask you about. Do you know about angels? Do you know a lot about angels?
Well, to the extent anybody knows about angels. We don't know a lot, but we know some.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Like okay, so the two places we would get that knowledge, I guess 3 places maybe.
Okay.
One, let me just see if this is correct. Scripture, tradition, and then our reasoning about Scripture and tradition.
Yes.
Would those be
that would be an acceptable way to put it.
Okay, and is angelology a real thing?
Yes. Yeah.
The study of angels.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, can you give me an example of something we know from Scripture, tradition, and reason about the angels? Like what?
Well,
do we know how many there are?
Well, we know that they are created intellects. They don't naturally have bodies like we do, but they can affect things in the physical world, and they're immortal. So they don't die because they don't have a body to die.
Okay.
And there are apparently a vast number of them. I believe the Bible uses the expression myriads of myriads, and a myriad is 10,000. So that's 10,000 times 10,000, or 100 million. So there are at least hundreds of millions of angels, but we only know the names of 3.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
That's so weird. And I think I know the 3.
Okay.
Michael, Gabriel. It was one of the Ninja Turtles. Raphael?
Yeah, Raphael.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say Donatello, but that wasn't right.
Apparently angels, because they're just servants of God, they're not like into promoting themselves. They're into promoting God, and so they don't tell their name.
Someone needs to tell them about modern branding.
I know,
Come
the
on,
angels are really not good at branding.
Okay. So there are hundreds of millions of them, but we know 3 by name.
We know 3 by name.
Yeah. All right. And when we get to heaven, let's say we make it to heaven, will we be able to?
I'm hoping to.
Well, I'm hoping to too. Will we be able to see them? Or what's the deal there?
Presumably, we'll be able to sense them. Now, if they manifest to us in a physical form, we could see them with our physical eyes. If they manifest to us in a visual but mental form, like in a vision, then we could see them with our spiritual eyes, or they might talk to us telepathically, or who knows.
Fascinating. 888-318-7884.
They also fight each other.
Okay, see, now you wait till I'm giving out the phone number to say that. I got to know that. I mean, I can't even finish giving out the phone number now.
Well, we'll give out the phone number, and then I'll tell you about them fighting.
You guarantee you will tell me about angels fighting if I give out the phone number?
I guarantee.
Guarantee. 888-318-7884. It is a kids open forum today. School's probably out or almost out for you. So if you're probably free to pick up the phone and call. You got to get permission of who's ever in charge of the dialer, but you're welcome to call 888-318-7884 with any question at all about God, about the church, about the Bible. for our guest, Jimmy Akin. Okay, tell me about angels fighting.
So they don't have bodies, so they can't physically injure each other.
Okay.
But because there's nothing physical to injure.
Yeah.
But apparently they have a way of fighting telepathically. And we see this, or it could be through some proxy things, but they have some way of fighting, because in the book of Daniel, Daniel at one point prays, and eventually Gabriel shows up to give him a message. And Gabriel, but it's been a while, and Gabriel says, I was aware of your prayer when you first prayed it, but I was delayed getting here because the prince of Persia opposed me. So in the Old Testament, different nations have angels that are like
the prince of that.
ruling them. They're
Yeah.
the angelic prince of that nation. Michael being the angelic prince of Israel. And so Gabriel says, I would have been here sooner, except the prince of Persia opposed me. And then Michael, the prince of your people, came to my defense, and he's kind of got the Prince of Persia in a headlock right now.
Isn't that awesome?
And I'm going to go back and fight with Michael against the Prince of Persia.
Wow. And so the Prince of Persia presumably is not a good angel.
No, a bad
No,
angel.
a
So
bad-
angels also can be bad.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we think of angels as giving us messages. Sometimes you hear that. An angel is a messenger.
That's what the word angelos in Greek
Yeah.
means, and what the equivalent word in Hebrew also means. It means messenger.
But that's not what they are by nature, though. They're not just messengers, right? They're
No, I want to say, I'm not sure who it is. I want to say Augustine said angels are spirits by nature, but messengers or angels by job.
That's their job.
That's their job. Although some of them have different jobs.
So this is what I wonder: if there's hundreds of millions of angels, and we know about guardian angels and all that, and but are there possibly angels who have jobs or even live lives that are really not related to what we humans are doing at all? They're off
sure.
doing something else
Oh,
somewhere
yeah.
else.
Yeah. It's totally possible. We don't know what all God has out there.
Yeah.
And so we know he uses angels in connection with us, but the universe is vast, and Scripture depicts angels being connected with some of the forces of nature. So they could be running things off in other far-flung parts of the universe that never interact with Earth.
Right. Again, 888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. It is an all-kids open forum today, so if you are in the over 18 set, then you'll just have to wait for another day. But if you're in the under 18 set, your calls and your questions are welcome. 888-318-7884. Let's take a quick break, and we'll come right back to calls for Jimmy Akin right after this.
Hang on. Catholic Answers Live will return in a moment.
Do you want to end abortion, halt the attack on traditional marriage, and ensure religious freedom for ourselves and for our grandchildren? To do this, we must convert the culture. St. Paul Street Evangelization is a grassroots initiative that recognizes this need and takes it to the streets. If you're interested in peacefully sharing the gospel in your area, visit streetevangelization.com to learn more.
Hey, we'd love to have you as a member of Radio Club, and Radio Club is our way of giving out free stuff and keeping in contact with you. Sometimes we ask you for your feedback, and lots of very generous people give us their feedback on a show, a topic, on the sometimes tolerable nature of my humor, and maybe sometimes intolerable. Whatever, we have certain things we ask questions about, and Radio Club members help us to answer those questions. But we also just like to give you stuff. And right now we've got an interview on Pope Emeritus Benedict with the great scholar Christopher Bloom. I think it's an interview you will be very happy to have. We'd like to just give it to you. The way you join Radio Club, it doesn't cost you anything. You just text the word CA Live, all one word, CALIVE, all one word, to the number 44222. Text CA Live maybe right now before you forget about it, to 44222, and we'll get you connected with Radio Club. We've got some more. The next Radio Club free giveaway, and you get them all. You don't only get the one that you sign up, on the day you sign up, but you get them whenever there's a new one. You get it if you're a member of Radio Club. And then the next one is going to be also related to Pope Emeritus Benedict, and I think you'll like that one as well. We'd love to give you this free stuff, and we'd love to be in contact with you. You just text the word CA Live to 44222. It is Kids Open Forum today, and kids are welcome to call. Jimmy Akin is senior apologist here at Catholic Answers and happy to take your calls. Let us go now to Hannah in Illinois. Hannah, are you there with us?
Hi.
Hi. Is this Hannah?
Yeah,
And how old are you, Hannah?
I'm 10.
All right. Well, we're very happy to get your call, Hannah. Your question for Mr. Akin.
How will we know the next time that Jesus will appear on earth?
So are you asking how will we know when it'll happen, or how do we know that he is back once he's back?
How do we know when he is back?
Okay. It's good that you ask it that way, because we don't know when it's going to happen. He told us, in fact, he warned us about the fact it's not going to be possible to really predict this in advance. But when it does happen, we have a couple of indications. One of them is he says it's going to be blindingly obvious because the whole world is going to change all at once. We're told in the book of Acts, in Acts chapter 1, that he's going to descend from the heavens, just like he ascended up to heaven after the resurrection. So he's going to descend again from heaven like that. And then, according to St. Paul in 1 Thessalonians 4, all of us Christians will be caught up to be with him in the sky. And how that's going to happen will be very interesting. Our bodies may not be like they are at the moment, because we're told we're going to be transformed in the twinkling of an eye, and some kind of supernatural transformation where you could have many, many, many bodies all together at the same time, maybe even overlapping each other in space, kind of the same way Jesus could walk through tomb walls, might be necessary to get all the billions of Christians together with Jesus in the air. Also, all of the dead Christians are going to be raised to be with Jesus, and they're going to come with him when he returns. And so if we're alive at the end of the world, when Jesus comes back, he's going to descend partway into the air, and then wham, all of us are going to be caught up to be with him. It's going to be amazing, it's going to be dramatic, and it's going to be obvious. We're not going to have to wonder, is he back or not? And then he'll proceed presumably down to the earth to judge the living and the dead and start the eternal order of things.
How's that, Hannah?
Good.
Well, Hannah, since you're our first caller, I'll just remind you that we're giving everybody who gets through on the line today a copy of Catholic Puzzles, Word Games, and Brain Teasers by Matt Swaim. If you stay on the line, Marie will get your address, if that's okay with your mom or dad, and we'll send you that book, Catholic Puzzles, from Matt Swaim. Thanks very much, Hannah. Really appreciate your call. It is Kids Open Forum today on Catholic Answers Live. Jimmy Akin, senior apologist here at Catholic Answers, is ready to take your calls. And up next is Blessed here in California. Blessed, are you there with us?
Uh-huh.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, Blessed. How old are you?
Hi. 12.
You are 12 years old. And what is your question for Mr. Akin?
The first question is, why did all the priests and bishop scandals happen? And then another one is it scary to be an altar server?
Blessed, do you want to be an altar server? Is that something you'd like to do?
I don't know.
Okay, so you just want to know whether it's scary. Okay.
So the priest and bishop scandals happen because priests and bishops, like you and me, are sinners. Everybody is a sinner. And sometimes that sin results in a scandal. And it's very unfortunate that this happened. There were some things going on in society that led this to happen. There was a particular movement that started back in the 1960s, was when it really got into full swing, that said it was okay to misbehave in certain ways. And that influenced a lot of the priests and bishops who were educated, who were just growing up or going to seminary at that time. And so they were influenced by the movement of their time that told them it's okay to misbehave in certain ways, and some of them did. Fortunately, most of them did not. This is not something that it was common. There have been investigations, studies that have been done of just how much bad activity there was by priests and bishops. And even though there were some really bad priests and bishops, most of them were very faithful to their vows, and consequently, most altar servers don't find it scary to be an altar server. They enjoy doing it. They enjoy serving God by serving Mass. And these days, the Church takes special precautions to make sure that altar servers and other children are protected, like by never being alone with a priest. So there's always someone there to make sure nothing bad happens. That's standard practice in dioceses across the United States. And so altar servers today don't have a lot to worry about. Obviously, they want to let their parents know if anything suspicious happens, or they see anything that they think is funny. They want to tell their parents about it, and so their parents can look into the matter and see if it really is a dangerous situation. But dangerous situations for altar servers today are very few and far between, and the Church takes extra steps to protect altar servers.
Blessed, thank you so much for that call. We'd like to send you a copy of Catholic Puzzles, Word Games, and Brain Teasers by Matt Swaim. And so if you'll hang on, Marie will get your information. It's Kids Open Forum today on Catholic Answers Live. 888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. Teenagers are also welcome to call during Kids Open Forum. If you're under 18, you're welcome. 888-318-7884. And we got a different book for you. We got Why We're Catholic from our own Trent Horn. I don't believe that you were an altar server when you were young.
I was not, because I wasn't a Catholic when I was young.
I was an altar server.
How was your experience?
I loved it, but except for one thing.
What was the one thing?
Incense. When you had to hold that censer,
Mm-hmm.
the incense would go shooting right up your nose, and I couldn't. I had a very hard time not either coughing or laughing at the time. And I was usually with my brothers. We were altar servers together, and so then we'd start cracking each other up. And I think we were at that point we were just bad altar servers. I don't know.
Well, these days incense isn't used a whole lot, so that's not too much of a problem.
That's true. There's not that much incense. But it's funny because it didn't bother my brothers that much. And as an adult, you go, well, why don't we just say to the priest, could he hold it instead of me? But when you're a kid, you don't always think that. You just do what the priest told you to do. He said, here's the incense. And I always be like, I hope he doesn't give it to me this time. Yeah, that was my only struggle as a
well, it's okay to make reasonable requests.
It is. I think that's right. It is okay to make reasonable requests. But here's another strange thing. I love incense now.
Me too.
I absolutely love it when the incense is burning in the church. Again, it's Kids Open Forum. 888-318-7884 is the number. When kids get through today, they are going to get a free copy of Matt Swaim's book, Catholic Puzzles, Word Games, and Brain Teasers. Who's that from? That is from Ave Maria Press. So if you want to get a copy of that for the kid in your life, you can find it at Ave Maria Press. Or you can just have the kid in your life call today, and we'll get them through. There are lots of folks on the line, but we're still working through the screening. So if you'll just be patient, we'll get through it and get to you.
So if you like incense, you should see this videos of this church over in Europe. I believe it's in Italy. I'm sure it's in Italy, where they have this enormous censer. It's like the size of a man that hangs from the ceiling. They've got it chained to the ceiling. It's called the Botafumerio. And they swing it. They have to push this censer.
Nice, I like
and it
this.
Gets to swinging, and then to stop it, like a guy has to do a body check on the Botafumerio to stop it from swinging.
And I imagine there must have been another town close by who had a big one, and they were like, no, we will have a bigger.
Probably something like that. There are a lot of weird kind of folk customs in churches over in Europe.
Well, Catholic Church has been around a long time.
Yeah.
A lot of time
to
build that
develop
stuff
those
up.
customs.
Yeah. 888-318-7884 is the number. It is Kids Open Forum. We go now to Joseph in Missouri. Joseph, do we have you there with us?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, it's very nice to have you, Joseph. How old are you?
I'm 14.
You are 14, all right. And your question for Mr. Aiken.
I was curious about what exactly is the difference between a Protestant and a heresy?
Okay. Well, a Protestant is a person. I mean, I'm gonna give you one answer, and then I'll give you a more informative answer. But just strictly speaking, Protestant is a person, and a heresy is an idea. And so that's one difference. But let me back up and talk a little bit more about this, and I can make it more informative. So the first thing we need to understand is what a heresy is. And in order for something to be a heresy, there have to be several things that are true. The first one is you have to have a person who's already been baptized in order to have someone commit a heresy. And the second, so they've already been baptized. The second thing is they have to refuse to believe a dogma. A dogma is something that the Catholic Church has infallibly said is part of divine revelation. So it's not just that it's infallibly taught. The Church has infallibly taught that it is part of divine revelation. So those are the first two conditions. The person has to be baptized, and then they have to refuse to believe something that the Church has infallibly said is part of divine revelation. Then there's a third condition. They have to do this obstinately. That is, they're in bad faith, that they're not doing this innocently. They've been warned, and they've seen evidence that, yeah, the Church has infallibly defined this, and they know they ought to believe what the Church has infallibly defined, and they say, I don't care. I refuse to accept it anyway. And if all those conditions are true, if they're baptized, they refuse to believe something the Church has said is divinely revealed and has infallibly said that, and they just do so obstinately, then they've committed the crime of heresy. But Protestants, the vast majority of them, aren't in that condition. Now, the vast majority of Protestants are baptized, and they normally do refuse to believe something that the Catholic Church has infallibly said is part of divine revelation. For example, the Assumption of Mary. You know, very few Protestants accept that. So they do fulfill the first two conditions for heresy, but they typically don't fulfill the third. They're not obstinate. They're not in bad faith about this. They were raised in a Protestant church that didn't teach this, and they haven't been shown evidence, most of them, to convince them that, oh yeah, I need to believe what the Catholic Church says when it infallibly defines something. So they're in what theologians refer to sometimes as innocent ignorance. They're just not aware, through no fault of their own, of the fact that they ought to believe this, and that keeps them from being obstinate in this sense. And so, as a result, most Protestants are not heretics. They don't commit the canonical crime of heresy. And that's when a Protestant, like I was, joins the Catholic Church. He's not asked these days to renounce heresy because he never fulfilled the conditions for it. Instead of referring to Protestants as heretics these days, if you look in church documents, they're referred to as our separated brethren. They're separated because they don't believe everything the Church teaches, but they're still brethren in Christ because they're trying to serve Jesus according to their understanding of things, and they're doing so in good faith, most of them, even though they don't understand Jesus fully the way the Catholic Church does.
Okay, Joseph?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're very...
I've been wondering about that for a while.
I'm glad we
awesome.
could help you out. And we've got a book for you, so hold on. If you've already given your address, that's fine. She'll get it to you, but hold on otherwise, and we'll send you that book, Why We're Catholic. We go now to Karina, I believe. Do we have you there with us, Karina?
Oh, Karina, yes, she's here. Here, Karina.
Yes.
Hi, Karina. How old are you?
10 years old.
Well, thank you for your call. What is your question for Mr. Aiken?
How come women can't be priests?
Okay, well, the fundamental reason is because Jesus didn't choose to appoint women as priests, and the Catholic Church feels bound by Jesus' decision in this matter. It's been pointed out that if anybody on earth deserved to be a priest just by their own merits, it would have been the Virgin Mary, and Jesus didn't make her a priest. But there's a little more to say about this question, so we'll talk about it when we come back from the break.
Can you wait for a couple minutes, Karina?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Just hang on. We'll be right back with more Kids Open Forum on this Friday afternoon. 888-318-7884 is the number. Jimmy Aiken is our guest, and we'll get back to Karina's question right after this.
Love and beauty. As a little girl, Dawn Eden Goldstein knew that she wanted those things, that in them somehow she would find God. Over the years as a rock journalist, she moved among some of popular music's best-known artists, straining to capture that transcendent love and beauty in every note and lyric. In Sunday Will Never Be the Same, Dawn recounts her spiritual journey in beautifully wrought detail, mixing powerful accounts of trauma, healing, and epiphany with funny anecdotes from inside the music scene. It is the rare conversion story that delights as it inspires, amuses as it edifies, and ultimately lays before the reader a lived testimony to the transforming grace of Christ. Order your copy of Sunday Will Never Be the Same by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
In his new audio presentation, The Very First Fathers, apologist Jimmy Aiken takes you on a tour of the earliest Christian writings outside the New Testament. From the most famous figures and most notable works to those lesser known but no less important, this pivotal time in the development of the early church is revealed in fascinating detail. Jimmy shows how, even in the first century after the resurrection, it was necessary to defend and explain truths that are still under attack today, such as the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist and the perpetual virginity of Mary. The Very First Fathers is a compelling look at the dawn of the Christian age and edifying listening for anyone who wants to understand and defend the full truth of Catholicism. Order your copy of The Very First Fathers today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Looking for an on-fire Catholic speaker for your event? Catholic Answers speakers will inform and inspire your audience to grow in their Catholic faith. For more information on booking a Catholic Answers speaker, visit CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com today.
Coming up Monday on More to Life, Fool Me Twice.
Are there people in your life who are consistently letting you down? Tune in to More to Life today on Eastern 9 Central on EWTN Radio.
Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Darren's running the board today because we're on baby watch with Nick.
Yeah.
Nick went home to see if Martha's. Well, they're almost at full term, so Martha.
So keep them in prayer.
So yeah, please keep Martha particularly in prayer, but all
the
that whole
baby.
family and the new baby, little baby Cyril, getting ready to be born.
Maybe.
And Nick assures me that will not be the name, but I think it'd be great if that's what the baby was named.
You had your chances.
Yes, well, come on, Jimmy. Don't start getting all fair on me. What kind of world would it be if it was fair? We were talking, we went to the break with Karina. Karina is 10 years old, and she was asking why women can't be priests.
Right. So as I mentioned, the fundamental reason is it's because Jesus didn't choose to make women priests. There were women priests in the ancient world. Greeks and Romans had women priests. The Vestal Virgins in Rome, for example, were women priests. And nevertheless, it wasn't God's choice to have women priests in his people Israel. there weren't.
Yeah.
And God, through Jesus, chose to continue that practice in his church. And so even though there were women who would have made great priests, like the Virgin Mary, he just chose not to. Now, we can speculate on, well, why did he make that choice? Yeah. And one reason is because, that's been proposed, is because priests serve as a special image of Jesus, and Jesus is a man. Mm-hmm. He chose to become a man. He chose to relate to us in that way. And so since priests represent him, there may be some qualities that men have naturally that a priest who's a man can represent to people in a better way than a priest who is a woman could on average.
Yeah.
It's also been suggested that the fact that women get to bear physical life, only women can be mothers, is balanced by the fact that only men get to be spiritual fathers.
Oh, yeah.
And so it may be because women have the privilege of bearing physical life that a few men get the privilege of bearing spiritual life in the sacraments. So those are some ideas that people have proposed, but the fundamental thing is it's not being a priest is a gift. It's an opportunity to serve. It's not something anybody deserves, and so it's not unfair to anybody to say, well, it just wasn't my gift. I have other gifts, that God has given me. Like if I'm a woman, I have the opportunity to have physical life, to bear physical life that no man can do. And so there's a difference between the sexes, but there's also an equality between the sexes.
Okay, Karina?
Okay.
Would you happen to have
you
have any sisters there that want to ask a question?
A brother and a sister.
Oh, my goodness. It's going to be a busy day around here. All right, who's up next?
Marissa.
Marissa, are you there with us, Marissa?
Yes.
And how old are you, Marissa?
8.
Well, thank you for calling, Marissa. What is your question for Mr. Aiken?
Why didn't Jesus get married?
He didn't get married, as far as we can tell, because he wanted to dedicate his life to serving God exclusively. One of the things St. Paul talks about in his letters is the fact that if you're married, you can't just spend all of your time serving God, because you have to take care of your spouse and your children if you have children. And so you can't just focus entirely on God and on serving God. And that's one of the reasons that St. Paul thinks it's better, at least for some people, to not be married, so that they can just devote their full time to serving God and not have to worry about a husband or a wife or children. And that seems to be why Jesus chose not to be married, because he came to do a special mission, and that special mission meant he was going to have to travel all over the place and preach God's word to people and do miracles to help people, and he didn't want to be distracted by having a family. Also, he was planning on, as part of his mission, he was planning on dying on the cross, and then being raised from the dead, he was planning on going back to heaven. Well, that would have meant if he got married, he would have had to leave a widow here on earth when he died on the cross. And then, because it was the Father's will for him to go back to heaven, he would have had to leave his wife here on earth. And so that wouldn't have really been good for his wife, or if he had children, for his children either, to not have a father, and for his wife not to have a husband. And so he decided, because it was his mission to serve God in this special way, that he wasn't going to marry and have a family. And he also showed us something else by doing that, because all of us in the next life, once we're raised from the dead too, we're not going to be married to anybody. We'll still love the people we were married to in this life. We'll still know them, but we won't be married to them in the same way anymore. Jesus tells us we're going to be like the angels in heaven who don't get married. And so as a result, Jesus showed us by his life what our future life is going to be like, where we're totally dedicated to God and we don't, even though we love other people and we relate to other people, we're not married to other people. And that's the way it's going to be for us in the next life.
Okay, Marissa?
Okay.
All right, why don't you hand the phone to Antonio?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi, Antonio.
Hello.
How old are you, Antonio?
7.
7. Do you have 2 older sisters?
Yes.
And do you have a question for Mr.
Older and older sister.
Oh, well, I know. I have 2 older sisters, too, so I'm with you, buddy. I know how that goes. You have a question for Mr. Aiken?
Who doesn't have 2 older sisters?
Yes.
No, you don't.
Why did the devil be jealous of God?
Well, God is someone that people really look up to because he's incredibly good. He's, in fact, infinitely good. There's no limit to how good God is. And for people and angels who recognize how good God is, that means they naturally want to praise him. They want to worship him and say, wow, God is so good. Well, they're complimenting God when they say that. Also, because God is who he is, he's able to tell people what to do. God is the one who's ultimately in control of everything in the universe. Nothing happens if God doesn't at least allow it. And God can tell people what to do. He can tell them, do this or don't do that. And so those things are things people sometimes are jealous of. If one person is getting a lot of compliments, people are saying, oh, this person is so good. Well, that can make other people feel jealous, as they can think, well, I wish I was getting those compliments. And in the same way, if someone's in charge, if someone's in control and gets to decide what's going to happen, other people could think, well, I would like to be in charge. I would like to decide what happens. And so they can be jealous for those reasons. And so I would say the devil would have been jealous of the fact everyone was praising God and he wanted to be praised. Mm-hmm. And also the devil was jealous of the fact God is in charge and he wanted to be in charge.
Antonio, thank you very much for your call, and thank your sisters Marissa and Karina for us. It is Kids Open Forum on Catholic Answers Live. Today we go now to Maggie. Maggie, are you there with us?
Yes.
Hello, Maggie. How old are you?
10.
And do you have a question for Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Do you want to ask it now?
Yes. Why? How do we know that God is actually, Jesus and God are actually real, and somebody just made up the Bible, just wrote the Bible for people to worship him, and he calls himself that?
Ah.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part of that.
So, Maggie, is it that how do we know that God and Jesus are real and not just made up, and the Bible's made up? Right?
Yes.
Okay. So there are a bunch of reasons why we know this. In terms of God, well, God makes contact with us. God sometimes does that spiritually. He lets people know, maybe by having a vision or even just a sense that he's there. He gives people experiences that show them he's real. Also, he since he made the world, he kind of left his fingerprints on it. And so people who study matters like this, like, say, Thomas Aquinas, have pointed out that, hey, the world wouldn't be here if someone didn't make it. So the very fact the world exists tells us about God, and then some of the different things in the world tell us more about God. And so we can figure out that God exists based on the world that we see around us. In terms of how do we know that Jesus exists, well, we have historical evidence that he existed. People, we have, records that go all the way back to the 1st century that talk about Jesus, and they also talk about his followers in his church. And in order for the church to exist, somebody needed to found it. And all of the evidence points to the church being founded by Jesus. And we also have evidence that Jesus really was crucified. This is something scholars, even if they're not Christian scholars, they'll believe that because that's what the records from history shows. And if you study it even closer, there's evidence that he rose from the dead. And that gives us evidence that Jesus really was working for God, and he had a special place in God's plan, and that miracles really happen, and that the Bible is an accurate record of these things because it talks about God and about Jesus and his crucifixion and his resurrection. And so that shows us that the Bible isn't just made up, it is an actual reliable record of these things.
Okay, Maggie?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
We also have lots of books here at Catholic Answers that talk about this evidence, and when you're a little older, you might want to get some of them and read them.
And but we're going to send you a book right now, if it's okay with your mom or dad. You just hang on, and Marie will get the information she needs to get. Hey, right now, $10 off the 1-year subscription, $20 off the 2-year subscription, $30 off the 3-year subscription. I'm assuming. I don't know. I'm assuming that. $5 off the all-digital subscription of Catholic Answers Magazine. Catholic Answers Magazine is one of the finest Catholic magazines you will ever read. It's always full of useful features and articles by top names in Catholic apologetics. Each issue will give you a whole new batch of top-drawer commentary, analysis, topical articles that you can use. And now, when you subscribe or give a gift subscription, we throw in a free digital subscription. So right now, go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com, and while this sale is on, you get $10 off that 1-year subscription, $20 off too. And if you decide on the digital alone subscription, you get $5 off right now. CatholicAnswersMagazine.com.
You're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their Catholic values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, Kids Open Forum. Jimmy Akin is our guest this hour. Jimmy is senior apologist here at Catholic Answers. And we go to Heather. Heather, we got you there with us?
Yeah.
Are you in Iowa, Heather?
Yes.
And how old are you?
11.
Oh, well, thank you very much for your call. What is your question for Mr. Akin?
So if dinosaurs were the first animals before humans, and then cavemen came around, and they don't talk about that in the Bible. Like, they just say it was like dark and then God made the light. So like, when did that happen?
Okay. So there are different ways of looking at this question, and the way I'm going to mention is not the only way, but I'll tell you what I can in a short space of time. If you look in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, it says that the days of creation in Genesis 1 are symbols, that they symbolically communicate to us the work that God did in making the earth. So the biblical author took all of the work that God did in making the world. He made the light, the darkness, the sky, the sea, the birds, the fish, the plants, and the land animals and man. He made all those things, but the biblical author pictured that symbolically as a sequence of 6 days, with the 7th day after the world was finished, so it all corresponded to the Hebrew 7-day week. because it's a symbol, we shouldn't try to treat it as if it was a sequence that happened in time, to where you can say it really happened in 7 24-hour days.
Mm-hmm.
It's really symbolic of a much longer period of time spanning, according to science, billions of years. And so, but that's kind of those are big numbers that Hebrews didn't actually have. And so it got represented as a symbol of, well, here's what God did, and it's pictured as if it's happening in the course of a week. But if you look at how those days are sequenced in in Genesis 1, it's clear that they're not being arranged according to time. They're being arranged according to subject. So the very first thing we read is that when God made the heavens and the earth was formless and empty. So it has two problems. The first problem is it's formless, it's not in good form, and the second is it's empty. And you then look at the first 3 days of creation. What is God doing on those 3 days? He's solving the problem of the world not having form. So he solves that problem by giving it form by dividing things. So on the first day, he divides day from night. And on the second day, he divides the sky from the sea. And on the third day, he divides the sea so that the dry land appears. And thus, the world has now got form. It's been structured so that it's a good place to live. It's got a day and a night, it's got a sky and a sea, and it's got dry land. But it's still empty. And so on the second 3 days, God goes back over the same places he structured, the same things he divided, and gives them and he populates them. He puts things in them so the world won't be empty anymore. So on the fourth day, he takes the day and the night, and he puts the sun, the moon, and the stars in them.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the fifth day, he goes back to the sky and the sea, and he puts the birds and the fish in them. And then on the sixth day, he takes the dry land, and he puts the animals and man in it. And so now the world is not only formed, it's also filled. It's no longer empty. But we can tell that this is being arranged by the topic or the subject rather than according to time. If you look at the first day and the fourth day, because on the first day we have day and night. But what makes it day versus night?
The sun.
The sun. It's whether the sun is facing this side of Earth or the other side of Earth is what makes it day or night. But the sun isn't created until day 4. And so that tells us that this isn't being arranged according to the order that it happened in time. It's being arranged according to the subject of, are we talking about day or night? Are we talking about sky or sea? Are we talking about dry land? And that's really the way this material here in Genesis 1, that's the way all these things are organized. And so that means we shouldn't look to Genesis 1 and try to say, well, where in here were the dinosaurs? Mm-hmm. Because it's not trying to tell us about that. It's just trying to tell us God made everything, God had a plan, and it was all very good.
How is that for you, Heather?
Good, thank you.
All right, thank you. And you hold on for your book, too. We want to send you a puzzle book. Really appreciate your call very, very much. It's open forum for kids. We go now to Addison in Indiana. Do I have you there, Addison?
Hello?
Hello, Addison. How old are you?
I am 10.
Well, I'm very happy you called, Addison. What is your question for Mr. Aiken?
So how come people in the Old Testament lived to be in the hundreds, mm-hmm. and also is 40 years the same as 40 years now?
Okay.
As it is in the Old Testament?
Yeah. So it's only people in the first 12 chapters of the Bible that really got to be hundreds and hundreds of years old. In terms of how that could happen, well, one day God is going to make all of us immortal. When we're raised from the dead, we're not going to have bodies that age. We're not going to get sick. We're not going to die again. And so God can take a person who has a physical body, and by his grace, he can cause that person to live forever. And forever is way more than hundreds of years. So it's possible for God, using his powers, to make people live for hundreds of years. And you could say, well, that's what he did for these people early on. He used his powers to give them extra long lives. On the other hand, that may not be what happened. A lot of scholars have looked at these early chapters in Genesis and said, they have a lot of symbols in them. They're not written like later history is in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And so maybe there's a symbol, some kind of symbolism going on here. Like if you look at Enoch, in that period, Enoch lives for 365 years, the same number as the number of days in a year, because there are 365 days in a year. And then he lives for 365 years. Maybe that's a symbol of some kind. And so a lot of people have looked at these numbers and said, maybe they're a symbol. Maybe they're trying to tell us something else, like how great these guys were in the ancient world because they were closer to God than we are now. And so maybe that's what's happening. Some people have tried to explain, and this gets to the other part of your question, Addison, some people have tried to say, well, maybe we can explain these numbers as the year was a different length back then. Like maybe what we call a month, they called a year. But that doesn't really fit what we have in these texts, because what we have in Genesis. Because why then do the lives start getting shorter? You look at how they're, if you make a list of all these people, they're hovering around a certain age, like say 800 years, and then their lifespans start to decrease in kind of a smooth slope till they get down to a modern lifespan. But if that was the case, well, the year wasn't changing its length, and the month wasn't changing its length. And so that year to month or year to some other measurement theory doesn't really fit the evidence. I think it would be better to just say, well, God kept them alive by his powers like he will for us, or this is a symbol.
Okay, Addison?
Okay.
All right. Well, if you hold on, we'll send you a book as well. Thank you very much. Let's try getting Maddie's question on. Maddie, are you there right now, Maddie?
Yes.
We're really short of time, so real quick, what is your question for Mr. Aiken? Oh, we lost Maddie.
Oh no.
Okay, I don't know what happened there. It wasn't me, Maddie. Let's go to Diane in Columbus, Ohio, real quick. It's going to have to be really quick.
That's okay. The quicker we do it, the quicker it's done.
Are you there with us, Diane? We're having a problem. We're having a problem. I apologize.
That's okay.
Diane.
I'm still here for you. Diane is on line 6.
Okay. Diane, it's going to have to be super quick. Can you ask your question really fast of Jimmy Aiken?
What are guardian angels and what do they do?
Guardian angels are angels that God has assigned to guard us. That's why they're called guardian angels. They appear before God. They'll, like, if they see something bad that's happening or about to happen to us, they'll go tell God about it, which is a kind of prayer. They'll pray for us, and they may do other things to help us out too. Like I mentioned earlier, how angels can fight. And good angels will battle bad angels, and so our guardian angels may be guarding us from bad angels that might try to tempt us to sin or something like that. We don't know all of what guardian angels do, but we do know that they exist and that they're looking out for us, and you can thank God for your guardian angel and all he does for you.
Diane, you did a great job asking that question quickly. I really appreciate you helping me out that way. If you hang on the line, we would love to give you Matt Swaim's book, Catholic Puzzles, Word Games, and Brain Teasers, available from Ave Maria Press. A very hearty thank you to Ave Maria Press for making those books available to us. Jimmy Akin, we worked together a lot this week, and I really enjoyed it. Thanks for a great week.
We'll have to work together some more next week, maybe.
All right, I'll try. And we'll see. Hey, we'll probably have a report on Nick and Martha. We'll see if there's a baby on Monday. Give them a prayer if you've got one. Jesus Christ is the light of the nations, and we'll see you next time on Catholic Answers Live.